it's common in most philosophy of the modern age to often emulate and borrow the ideas from the greats from back in time, all the way back to the Greeks, all the way up to the Enlightenment. This is no bad thing. This is, using good ideas for rational purposes is quite common, and often you find that to borrow from people such as the greats, like Socrates and Plato, is often an emulation of the attempt to try and seek the wisdom in one's life, which is what philosophy is all about. Now, recently I've come across quite an interesting philosopher that I'd never really heard of much. I'd come across them in my childhood somewhat, but obviously at that age you're interested in different things. You don't necessarily kind of take note and pay attention to what's going on there. But yeah, so I started reading up on. Ironically, it's a female, but not that matters in this day and age. But you'd often associate philosophy with men, as it seems to be the case. But yeah, I came across her work from back when she published some of her stuff in 1995, I believe, possibly no, 1998, I think it was. Yes, and you read some of this stuff, and it's pretty hard going stuff, but once you get your head around it, you realise the depth that she's actually going to. It's quite interesting stuff. I mean, I'm really just reading from one of her recent soliloquies, where she talks about she starts very matter of fact of questioning why we as humans always run around in crowds. And it seems like an existential question of why humans must follow their herd instincts, why we must be kind of act like sheep towards the wolf, and it's right to question that, I think, and I think her response to that is because we want to. I mean, because we want to. I think that kind of answers a lot of reasons why we do what we do, not because necessarily there's a rational basis for it, but because instinctively we feel that we must do it. We have a desire to do it, and then she kind of goes into the kind of a bit of kind of poetic kind of extrapolation from that is why do we always have to dance all night? Again, because we want to. That's their answer, is because we want to. And I think that in itself is kind of as a nod to Epicurean school of I think it was the indulgence from the school of Epicureanism, where they it was all about kind of trying to lead the good life. It's like a form of hedonism, but not in the sense of just doing everything that's pleasurable for the sake of pleasure, to the excess of like you get the Roman orgies, but more to the point of seeking the good things in life, which is why you might want to dance all night long. You feel yourself full of that lack of consequence, but at the same time experiencing the joy. And then she goes on to say things, don't try to tell me what I already know. Obviously, criticism of the school of sophism there. It was a very big thing in the Greek era of the ancient Greek era of the school of sophism, claiming to be knowledgeable when really not having any knowledge at all. Leading into how this goes into the dictatorial egoism of the Caesar dynasty, with the Caesars constantly crying for power rather than trying to solve the problems of society. Where she says, "Don't criticise me, because I am running the show." Often you hear dictators kind of take that kind of egoistic, self-arrogant stance on many issues. And from that, she instigates her kind of what's apparently not just apparently, but almost obviously her Marxist philosophy as the solution to the modern equivalent of that problem, with the concept of the autocracy in power, where she says some revolution is going to happen today. Again, she goes back to we can do anything we want. We can do anything that we want. We can. And I think that kind of goes back to her questioning the notion of morality here itself. Clearly, we kind of see Piper here trying to be a proponent of Nietzsche's school of thought, the Superman, by declaring morality and values to be subjective in their own right. She's setting us, the audience, up for her conclusion that we must transcend their own moral limitations and probably decide for ourselves what our values must be. So yeah, I mean, there's more of a work out there. She's got a doctorate in WHO somewhere. I can't remember what school it was. No, it wasn't Wolfram Alpha. It was Wolf Bay or something. It was something like that. But yeah, she's got a doctorate in WHO. She got that from, she's obviously gone up to a PhD level. It's obviously the doctorate from 2005 to 2013. It's interesting enough because I mean her career after that kind of coming out of university seems to be going, she's fallen on tough times. For several years she talks about being a cool girl, I mean, this can happen sometimes, and various other little works she gets back into, but I think her main kind of work stems to be from the early 2000s, late 1990s, with her kind of philosophical musings as such. But I think it's really interesting stuff, and it's worth looking at. Billie Piper, yes, also originally known as Leanne Paul Piper, but apparently she changed her name. But yeah, so look it up. It's quite interesting stuff, a bit deep, as philosophy often tends to be. But try just looking at it and seeing what you think. I think some of the stuff she says is quite wise and quite insightful. But yeah, just wanted to say that.